A Pierce County man is accused of attacking a woman he dated for 4 months. There's only one problem. The victim says she's never met him.
If that makes you go, what? That's right. That didn't stop the city of Tacoma's prosecuting attorney from charging the man who had nothing to do with it, didn't even know the victim, with a crime. Despite the man's pleas, he and his wife told they had to fight this in court. Fox 13's Matthew Smith joining us now. And Matt, you and the rest of the Fox 13 investigative team stepped in when you learned about this. So what do you know tonight?
David Sabir, it has been a roller coaster for Robert Wiltfong and his wife. He admits he had some issues in his younger years, but for 2 decades, he has been on the straight and narrow. So imagine how it all felt for them to come crashing down when a court summons arrived on the doorstep for a crime he did not commit. In fact, we proved it. And it appears that investigators waited until we called them out on it to take any action.
It seems reckless, and it certainly feels reckless.
It's a case of the wrong Robert. Both of these men white, roughly 6'2", and both weighing in around 220 pounds. But as Robert Wiltfong points out, it's where the similarities end.
This guy doesn't look like me at all. Zero.
You can probably hear the frustration in his voice. His wife's too.
Immense frustration, just so much frustration.
Those emotions stem from this court summons, calling for Wiltfong to appear in court next week. Though it appears police have the wrong Robert. Because as it happens, that other Robert I mentioned, he also has the last name Wiltfong. On your screen, you have the in-person Robert. That's Robert Lee Wiltfong. In the image, that's Robert Michael Wiltfong. But when 3 different Tacoma police officers filled out 3 reports in early March, each wrote down the wrong middle name, missing their own note that the Robert Wiltfong they were after has a telltale monster tattoo under his right eye.
How can they mess that up?
Something we confirmed with the victim when we tracked her down.
That's definitely not him. Not him, that's him.
Gotcha.
Wow.
Sure enough, she had no clue that an innocent man was about to face a judge, a man she had never even met.
It's unfortunate. And I would be freaking out if I were in his shoes. I don't want this guy to have to pay for what he has done. You know what I mean? It's not fair.
This one in particular, for me, is just, it's a slap in the face. It's against everything who I am.
For Robert, the one we know is innocent, he was shocked when he learned about the crime he'd been accused of. All of it playing out at a Tacoma apartment complex. Robert Michael Wiltfong is accused of texting death threats before ultimately showing up, forcing his way into the victim's home, and yelling at one point, "I'm gonna beat your ass." The victim was injured when she was shoved to the ground. But the real concern is that this other Robert, the one with a face tattoo and a lengthy criminal record, is on the sex offender registry for, among other things, rape. Being tied to that just hits differently.
Why couldn't they do a little due diligence and look through the paperwork one more time to discover these things that you were easily able to discover?
We had that same question, among others, so I reached out to Tacoma's police chief and the city attorney's office. They didn't respond right away, but suddenly Robert's court date was moved up. No one bothered to tell him, so without Robert or our pesky TV news cameras, the charge was dismissed, and this note in red was attached, saying, "Charge to be removed from defendant's record." Now, Tacoma police declined an on-camera interview, but told me their system that they file reports on is similar to Outlook. If I start to write my name, for instance, it finds matches, and when I click, it can autofill. But in this case, it filled in the information of another Robert Wiltfong. By phone, a spokesperson telling me it's definitely not an easy situation. I feel for the man whose identity was mistaken. I was also told that a detective has since been assigned. They're hoping to understand how this all happened. In the meantime, Michael Wiltfong, a.k.a. Monster, has since been charged.
It's just scary to think, number one, that it can happen. I mean, these are the things you see on movies. But second, the longevity, the downstream impact that this may have.
So the wrong Robert, or the one we know is innocent, had 2 major concerns heading into all this: missing work and having to hire an attorney. They, like many families, just can't afford to dig into their savings for something like that. Now, because of our reporting, they avoided that, but it remains unclear why this mistake was actually made in the first place. I am told that there's body-worn camera and detectives can review it, and we hope to know more next week about how this all went down. As for the city attorney's office, we did reach out to them. As I explained, we have still had no contact from them at all on this case. We just know they suddenly dismissed the charges after we reached out. In the studio, Matthew Smith, Fox 13 News.